That's how we own it.
What's up, family? It's your girl, Tamika D, Mallory.
And it's your boy, Mysonne, the general.
And we're your hosts of Street Politicians, the place where the streets and politics meet. Mysonne Lennon.
Grandma T.
That's me. That is me. Oh, you are, what's your name again?
G-Pop.
G-Pop. That's so cool, though. We got that kind of legacy building. Legacy.
Yeah, I gotta go get my young king, man. I ain't seen him in a while.
I'm actually going to participate in caretaking in just a few hours once we finish the show today.
Are we doing grandma duties today?
I'm gonna do my grandma duties today.
Oh, that's so cute.
I wanted to just also make sure that folks who are listening in, that you all know something that I posted about this weekend, that sometimes we're taping days in advance. So when you all are listening to the show, you're listening to things that we've taped some time ago, maybe 3 days or 2 days. Sometimes it's really quick because, life happens and we need to discuss very, very important topics. But there are times when we're taping our show in advance and around the schedule of guests and what have you. And so in those instances, sometimes you all are hearing us speaking on issues, and it might not necessarily fit with some of the other things that's happening at the time. So we're working on that, but just wanted folks to know it. I wrote it on my page. Mysonne, you reposted it. But I think it's important also that we state it on the show so that you all will be aware of how things happen. And, we do our best to stay as current as possible with the news. And so, keep sending those topics, as Mysonne would say. Keep us up to speed on all the things that's happening, and make sure you hit up at Street Politicians Pod, where we're checking the DMs and we're learning more about issues, people, things, the goings on of the world. So that's that on that. And now it is election season. There's actually early voting happening in this moment. November 8th is the final day to vote. I think that there's been so much concern around a number of issues just in the media. There's all types of things happening in the media. There's controversy. There's, a lot of just drama, a lot of pain, a lot of laughter, just all types of things going on social media and in the media. And as a result of that, things can get drowned out. The midterm elections is something that does not get the type of attention that it needs in general. And there are, I believe, very specific reasons for why that happens. One of them being that there are actual forces that do not want us to focus on the midterms, because the midterms put people in power who are able to either push for or against the president's agenda, the federal government's agenda, and they have the ability from a local perspective to either push things down to the ground that is coming from the top, or they can sort of willy-nilly, as much as possible, in their own states and their own counties, so on and so forth. The reason why that's important is because many of our followers and our listeners are people who are very, very concerned about whether we should be participating in the voting process. We don't see much that is happening for Black people, especially, and radical change, leaps and bounds and jumps for it. We are tired of hearing it takes time. It's been taking over 400, some even say 500 years. And people want to see real progress swiftly happen in this nation. With that being said, and while we know that from a federal level, we have to fight like hell to get drips, What we also know is that the local government, the midterm elections, determines much of what happens in your state. It also, of course, determines some of the federal legislation as well, because you have senators running for office around the country. Shout out to our boy Gary Chambers, who is in Louisiana right now, running for Senate. And there are others around the country that are also running for those positions. So those positions are very high level federal positions. And they, of course, have some local standing. But you have other local elected positions on the ballot. Not to mention, you have other, what is the word? Ballot initiatives. So on ballot initiatives, these are issues, not people, that you can either support or vote down. So in different states, you have ballots. So for instance, in Florida, a ballot initiative was whether or not to restore the voting rights of people who were convicted of felonies in that state. And thankfully, the people, which we were on the ground there with the initiative, knocking on doors, we knocked on thousands of doors. And thankfully, there was an initiative passed. And shout out to all the people, all the leaders who were organizing in Florida. I think about Desmond Meade, and there are others who were doing incredible work in Florida. And of course, the ballot initiative passed. So this is serious stuff. It's easy to just be like, oh, we don't care, this and that. But no, this is on your street, your block, your community, your schools, everything that has to do with your life is a part of the midterm elections. And people who know that want to suppress your vote and stop you from going because they want to be the ones to maintain power and control. So with that being said, I'm gonna let you speak, my son, because I'm running my mouth. But today we have an incredible show of individuals who will come and talk to us about a particular issue. And I'll let my son talk about what that issue is.
Yep, we will be joined by some of my esteemed colleagues and brothers and people that I just respect to talk about the Black male vote. And it's going to be very critical in this election because what we realize is that Black men are really divided. You know, there are a lot of Black men that lean more towards conservative views and ideologies. There's certain things that as Black men that the liberal party doesn't, you know, it just doesn't fit with us, you know. So and majority of the things we do, but there are very distinct things that I think Black men are just against, you know. So we'll discuss those things, you know, and we'll talk about how important it is for us to vote. You know, a lot of us really don't even want to vote. I'm just being honest, like having conversations with Black men in our communities, they like, man, vote for what? Like, vote for who? You know, we voted, we keep hearing vote or die, we keep hearing this and that, but what are we getting for our vote? You know, and then there's a very intentional, you know, there's a very intentional push from the conservative side not to get Black men to vote, right? So they completely ignore the things that are happening and try to act like nothing is happening. Oh, nothing happened. Y'all voted for this and look what happened. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. And, you know, so it's very important for us to continue to highlight the things that are happening, to say, hey, look, this is that what happened. And then when things don't happen, let's talk about why they're not happening, you know, because there are, you know, intentional, you know, people from the conservative side and who have white supremacist mind states who are not trying to allow certain laws to be passed, certain, you know, policies to go into effect. So those things aren't really discussed. When you look in the media that wants to push this propaganda, it's just like, oh, this president isn't doing anything. This person you voted in, you know, every Democratic state isn't doing this. And I don't really go with party politics. You know, I'm not nonpartisan. I go with the best, what I think is the best, but you still can't convince me that a party where 97% of the representatives inside of it are all white, that don't come from the communities that I come from, that don't understand the realities that go on in those communities every day, are better for me than people that I actually have grown in this movement with, people that I've went in school, that I know have the same exact ideologies and understanding of what goes on in our communities. But there is a deeper rooted problem within government. And I think for us, government was never really designed for Blacks. It just really wasn't. So we're trying to completely shift something that was really never designed for us. So we're trying to change the culture of the government. We're trying to initiate new ways of politics.
Operation, yeah.
Operation. We're trying to initiate new things into it. And that takes a lot, you know, because this government is not going to just give up its power structure. It's not just giving up the structure that's built on white supremacy all the time without a fight. So that's what we're witnessing. We're witnessing white supremacy's last stand, you know, and what they'll utilize is our own a lot of times. They'll utilize people that look like us, you know, but never really don't identify with our realities. Unfortunately, most of the Black representatives that are in the Republican Party, they're so far removed from what's going on in our communities, our everyday lives. You know, they'll tell you they're Black, and they usually pick the dark-skinned ones. They make sure they're dark-skinned, you know, and they say, hey, this and that. Like when I'm looking at Herschel Walker, and I'm just saying, and this is why it's very dangerous for me, right? Because Herschel Walker has 1 or 2 talking points that Black men agree with, right? Because they
do their research.
They do their research.
They do their research.
He has you can tell he's not educated, but he goes up there and says 1 or 2 things that he knows appeals to Black men. Black men like football, so they know Herschel Walker from being a football player. So there's a level of identifying with him. But when you look at his background and understand his reality, it's not the reality of the average Black man in our communities. So there's this false narrative that's being pushed, and they continue to push this. And once again, it's not about partisan politics for me. It's about understanding the system. It's about understanding the individuals, just understanding how the game is being played, and understanding to have actual change, right? You have to go through transformation. You know, you can't think that you're going to continue along the same path and look to the same people to make changes for you that have never really made changes. Most of us say, hey, neither party is for us. Okay, we understand that. So in the process of us building something different, which I always say, because that should be the main thing that we should be doing. We should be trying to, how do we build a party, not just a party, but just a voter collective, a collective voter block with millions of people that we sit down and we come up to each, you know, participant, everybody who's running for office, and say, this is what we need as a people.
Right.
We have these conversations before primaries, when we're looking to see who is going to be, you know, the candidate. When we have these conversations, we sit down and say, well, these are tangible things that we need. Can you provide those things? Are you willing to provide? Are you willing to go on the campaign trail and say, this is what I'm trying to do, right? And that's what we need to do with every candidate. And then as we do that, we can shift and we create that power. Then we can say, you know what, we want our own party, but we can't keep creating 3rd and 4th parties that only get 1% and 2% of the vote and just do it as, you know, just a vote of some moral conscience. I'm tired of moral victories. Right? The moral victory shit is over for me. I'm grown, I got kids, they got kids. I want to see tangible change. I want to see things happening in real life, in real time. So, you know, this conversation is very critical.
There's some who would say that you said something that's really powerful about doing the same thing over and over again. And there are some who will say that that's the problem with voting for the Democratic Party. Black women are number 1 in terms of a voting bloc, and Black men actually are number 2. And so we are the absolute power base of the Democratic Party. And I know there is a need and a need and a desire to move away from the party. But again, to your point, you know, and there are people doing that. We have, you know, the brother from West Bellamy, from our Black Party, working alongside Puff to create a new party and do exactly what you said. First of all, start with, you know, supporting candidates, getting people together, aligning on goals, and then eventually becoming a party that has its own process in general. So we do need that. And there are people who are building it. but we've attempted to build it in the past. This is not the first time that people have said, we want to build a political party. But we as a people have to decide if we are at the place where we're ready to support that party. Hands down, no confusion, we're in. I don't know when we're going to get there. I think what has been done to us in terms of the division that exists within our community is strong enough that, who knows whether we'll get there anytime soon, but we certainly can get better than just throwing our votes away. And I think we should start the conversation with our guests today. As we said, we've got a great panel of folks today that are dealing with the issue of voting around the nation in different ways. And each person here has a group of sort of their constituents and folks that they touch and talk to on a daily basis that makes this conversation well-rounded. We were just saying, my son, this election situation, this is the part that we talk about, local elections, local work that also helps to push federal legislation to either block and or support federal legislation. So this is the stuff that folks say they care about, but yet and still, we're not seeing enough people engaged. And, I'm sure there are many reasons. I won't state them all, but I would say from the jump, as we start this conversation, that we understand clearly why so many, particularly of our Black men, feel disenfranchised and are really just sort of trying to figure out what are other ways to address their needs and concerns than to rely on this political system. So let me introduce the folks who are here with us today. All of them are our brothers. Reverend Jamal Bryant, who is from the great church in Atlanta, Georgia, that I preached at one day at his New Birth Missionary Baptist Church. Thanks, Jamal. Thank you for being with us. We have Wisdom Cole from the NAACP. He's the Youth and College Director. And we have Mondale Robinson from Black Male Voter Project. If you don't know Mondale, you need to get to know him because he's on the news telling the people some things. I done heard you saying stuff on the news, Mondale, that a lot of people are afraid to say, unbought and unbossed around the Black male vote. We'll be joined eventually by Congressman Jamaal Bowman. And so I think he will help us to round out the conversation even more. So whoever wants to start on
let me just ask the first question.
Cool.
I just want to know, what do you think is the biggest, each of you, what do you think is the biggest hurdle for getting Black men to vote?
I'll jump in. Stacey Abrams is in the fight of her life trying to become governor. All of the data is coming back that she is failing to get any real momentum or synergy around Black men. Black men feel taken for granted and have not been a part of the conversation. And so this last ditch effort here in Georgia has been trying to really mobilize Black men. The last two presidential elections hinged on the backs of Black women. But this now midterm election, I think is really in the strength of Black male participation.
I think we have to meet Black men where they're at. Part of the work in terms of turnout is making sure that we're engaging, particularly, the young Black male voters in the places and spaces that they interact in. I'm thinking about, the young Black men who are in college, who are into esports, right? Like, how are we connecting with that demographic, that population of young Black men? How are we making sure that we are messaging appropriately? Oftentimes, I feel like our population might be overlooked. And I think it's really important that we engage them in all aspects. And that means making sure that we're willing to go where we need to go.
I love that question, bro. First of all, thank y'all for having me. Let's be clear. Black men have every right in the world not to participate in America's politics, especially the electoral process. If you consider the fact that 152 years ago, they passed the 15th Amendment, supposedly giving us the right to vote, when in actuality, all they gave us was the right to be the guinea pigs for voter suppression. You asked what's the greatest hurdle to keeping Black men from participating. There's a couple of them, it's not one. The first one is poverty. Most Black men live on the margins. Telling people who live on the margins that they need to go vote does not ring true when they've seen no electoral change in their lived experiences. The second one is antipathy. The world look at Black men as if we're apathy, or if we have a level of apathy or a nonchalantness about the election. It's not true. What's actually going on is there's a level of antipathy, hate for the very transactional nature in which politics and politicians address us. Let me correct some misnomers. First of all, Black women are super soldiers as it pertains to our communities, and that's a fact. Black men also participate in the electoral process in record numbers in the last 2 presidential elections. The world won't tell us that, because what the world is doing, they're basing their voting off of exit polls that say that Donald Trump got more of the Black man vote. But in actuality, if you look at the real data, like the real data in these states, if you look at the voter turnout for primaries, partisan primaries, you saw a massive increase in a specific demographic of Black men, not age. Age didn't separate us. It was all Black men who had been what the world called sporadic voters, came out in increasing numbers. So consider this, no demographic in Georgia in 2020 had a huge increase or larger increase than Black men that have sat out the last 5 federal elections. That means these brothers were old enough to vote for Barack Obama, but did not vote for him in 2012, did not vote in 2014, 16, or 18. It's about 460,000 of the brothers in Georgia that meet that. That's nearly half of the brothers that are registered. Of that 460,000, 124 participated in the 2020 election. So people have this misnomer based on an exit poll, which actually started by this dumb company called Edmonds, and they get it wrong every year. And scholars have also criticized them. But what happens is the world runs with that because it's easy narrative to say that Black men are sitting out or Black men are not voting for Democrats. When in actuality, we vote for our community more than anybody except for Black women. And the same thing is happening right now. So people keep saying that, you know, there's no excitement around candidates for Black men. That's the wrong question to ask the Black man. People did the same thing in 2020. Are you excited for Joe Biden? Are you excited for, Ossoff? They asked him Ossoff. This election cycle, if you're asking if Black men are excited about Abrams, if you're asking if they're excited about Warnock, you can probably get a hell no from Black men. And that's just a fact, because that's the wrong question. Excitement does not equate if you're gonna vote or not, right? So Black men are policy voters, even though the world won't tell us that. So what we know is, while there may not be no excitement for the candidates, Black men are definitely turning out in record numbers. We're outperforming every demographic right now with the so-called sporadic voters and not super voters in Georgia. Right now, Black men have closed the gap between Black women, which is normally a 10% participation gap. It's only 2% right now. And the voters that we're turning out are our sporadic voters more than our super voters, which is a good thing because super voters have not missed an election. So that means even if they haven't voted, they're probably still gonna vote. And if we're turning out those voters who don't normally turn out, we're doing our damn job.
So because I've heard that it's not just Black men, but that the numbers in terms of all young people and just the Black community in general is not where it needs to be in order to assure a victory for the candidates, particularly in Georgia. Would you guys agree with that? Or, you know, is that what we're saying? And Mondale, I just want to say, we agree with you and stated before you all came on that Black women are number 1, but Black men are number 2 in terms of the power base of the Democratic Party specifically, and that it is very much so disrespectful for us to keep ignoring how much Black men do participate. However, we know that there is a major divide in terms of Black men who, to your point, have decided that they want to make choices that are based upon the issues they care about and less about candidates or following a particular party. But to go back to the point is, do you all feel like the numbers across the country from what you're hearing are down in general, or do you think that it's just an issue that's impacting Black men in this moment?
You know, from what I'm hearing, particularly about young people, right? Like for young folks, it is down. And I think what we're hoping to see is on election days before election day, folks are still turning out. I just left a rally around affirmative action. And from there, we are pushing our young people to make sure that they turn out and support. But again, I think, when I think about young Black men, I'm thinking about these issues. I'm thinking about these policy choices. Oftentimes for our generation, folks come into our community days before the election making promises, but where's the plan? Where's the policy? What are you doing day one? And I think we want to actually see our return on investment, right? If we're going to turn out, if we're going to support you, the work that you actually do is going to change our lives. Too often we've seen politicians cheat, steal, and lie, week after week, year after year. And so I think folks are tired about that. I think they want to see people who are actually going to change our lived conditions and not just talk about it as a talking point.
Yeah, I would say that the morale is down across the board, even across age demographics. We had the carrot around student debt cancellation, and that's on freeze. You're not seeing the Democrats fight aggressively or roll out a plan, and you're seeing the Republicans plan, and both of them are dizzied. We've not heard any real platform around reparations while money is being funneled to the Ukraine. HBCUs are still incubating on life support. We're seeing no real policy around support for our brothers and sisters in Jackson, Mississippi. Those who were adversely impacted by Hurricane Ian in Florida. Let's not even deal with the scab that's been pulled on the pre-existing health conditions that were exposed in COVID-19 pandemic. And so people are really dizzy and are asking, what's it all for? What difference is it going to make? And beyond the promises, to Brother Wisdom's point, what is the policy? What is the agenda? And a lot of people are not seeing that.
Yeah, I think, what happens is, first of all, Black men are participating at levels that should be considered astronomical, considered the lack of investment in our community, especially this demographic. What the world won't say is it's easier for those with resources, those with access, talking about the parties, both political parties, their auxiliaries, their candidates. If you see the campaigns they're running, they run heavy, media-heavy campaigns, 70 to 80% of their budget spent on TV, radio, and that's just not how you're going to reach Black men at all. So that failing is the failing of brothers to turn out is the fact that candidates invest their money wrong, parties invest their money wrong. People believe that get out the vote happens the 4 or 5 days before election, and that's tacky. Get out the vote begins January to December every year. So if you consider the work that needs to be addressed as it pertains to lack of trust from Black men in the political system, thinking you can change that in 4 days is absolutely tacky and silly. So I think what happens is when people consider the fact that, of the Black men that vote, 90+% of them vote for Democrats. So one party is just trying to keep us from going out, that's the Republican Party. And then the other party, the Democratic Party, would rather just spend their money on trying to convince their conservative-leaning white cousins to come back to the Democratic Party, which is never gonna happen. That demographic has sailed. And I think, we never tell the truth. I'm talking about we are people that play politics in the fact that the number one way to increase a demographic's participation is to spend resources on them. We have a white consultant class that gets more than 90% of the money from political expense, even though, like you said, the biggest base for the Democratic Party, I would say the only base, because we're not splitting 50-50, is Black voters. Everybody else, dance with the Democratic Party, but not majority, right? Our Latinx brothers and sisters and folk, and the same is true for our Asian brothers and sisters. So, and I just want to push back a little bit, sister, on something you said about Black men. There are no Black men switching over to Republican parties. There's been no increase in Black men's participation in Republican politics at all. And people keep talking about, like, this is how I know a lot of people, sis and brothers, that aren't really engaging with the majority of Black men in this country. They think Republican talking points are gonna misinform Black men as if we are living in a silo or if we're not experiencing the ills of American politics. Actually, the real voter suppression they should be worried about, or the real misinformation campaigns they should be worried about, are these brothers on YouTube saying craziness like flat earth and all the other stuff hotepping out here. Them the brothers that have the power to convince brother of some craziness. It ain't these white Republicans. So I think people are truly missing everything. I saw, let me tell you something. They've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on TV ads. I've seen Republicans run 3 or 4 ads on battle rap. Battle rap is a locked-in demographic for a special type of black man. And those black men, if you look at their crossover, if you take their profiles from social media and cross over it with the voter file, these are the brothers who sit out elections, right? So that means that an entire swath of people aren't being reached. And that just isn't true for that demographic. Like I said, if you look at the number of brothers who are registered to vote, nearly half of them have not voted in 5 consecutive federal elections. It's not a critique of black men. It's a critique of how we play politics in this country. And I think we are, when we say, oh, is it a black man thing or is it a different type of voter thing? No, it's the way we play politics. It's the actors. So nobody would ever condemn a person for not drinking Coca-Cola and drinking Pepsi instead. People would criticize the marketing campaign saying you're not selling your product properly. That's why people aren't buying it. The same thing is true with candidates. Candidates are products, and the party and their consultants aren't doing their job as it pertains to black men. When you're running out here talking about how much more you're going to invest in police, and these guys keep killing us with our hands up or on our backs. So I think what happens is the more you keep talking about these Republican-like messaging, the more you have these white consultants who are not connected to our community, the less and less you will see of people participating in your electoral process.
Let's let Congressman Bowman in so he could join and hear what we're talking about. We are in a good conversation, and because folks don't have a lot of time, I don't want us to go back over the discussion. But what I will say is that what we're talking about is the lack of investment in Black men that has created, whether they be false narratives and or voter apathy. Is that a term that I think we can use, Mondale, or do you think that's not a term that we should use?
I think we should step away from apathy altogether. There's no apathy in black men. There's no apolitical black man in America. There's a level of antipathy that exists, but antipathy is different than apathy. If I'm nonchalant about something, I don't really care what happens. If I hate it, keep it away from me. And I think people are addressing black men as if we're nonchalant about the process. We're not. We hate it. I mean, and we hate the way it's presented to us.
What I wanted to say, right, is I heard what you're saying that, black men aren't moving to the right, right? And what I've noticed, right, a lot of friends that I have, right, they come to me with all of these right-wing talking points. And these are new people that before they weren't having these conversations with me. They weren't telling me that, oh, well, Trump, they're identifying with Trump. They're telling me how Trump did all these things. They're coming to me with these things every day, and I'm confused. And I'm like, well, where are you getting this from, right? So that's one thing I want to say, and then y'all can go on to that. But I want to know, because I'm seeing in my personal life, not what the data is saying. I'm seeing in my personal life that people that I'm connected to, that I'm speaking to daily, that come on my posts, that I know they're not bots, that people that I speak to daily are coming to me and they're leaning conservative, right? So I want to know, what are the issues that you believe that really are important for black men? What are the issues that are important for black men that people aren't addressing, that maybe the conservatives are addressing, or maybe the Democrats aren't addressing, but what is important for black men?
I think first and foremost, you got to have the conversation. You got to meet people where they are. You got to go into the communities and act like you care, first and foremost. So before we even get to the topics and the content and the policy, show people that you care. Show people that you're willing to listen and learn and really engage to understand what the issues are. So then you can go work on the policy. One of my frustrations with the Democratic Party is we consistently do not do that directly and explicitly with Black men. So that's one. Just start the conversation first and foremost. Secondly, from what I'm hearing and in my own personal experience, we as a party and we as a country, we have to, one, be honest about the harm we have committed to Black men, be honest about the history related to that harm, and then be very explicit in doing something about it today, right? So access, opportunity, self-determination, dealing with issues of wealth inequality, helping Black men and the Black community to build wealth. Criminal justice reform is another. And there are many other topics as well, fully funding education, affordable housing, et cetera, et cetera. But first and foremost, you know, do the work of engaging Black men first and foremost. We haven't even done that to know which direction we need to go in terms of topics and policy. If we did that, that would go a long way. To your point, my son, around leaning conservative, Republicans, if you will, or conservatives have done a better job of engaging, whether it's directly or indirectly, whether it's through proxies like Ice Cube and Kanye and others, or through topics that are important to Black men, like money and wealth and other things, even criminal justice reform. I mean, Trump did a few things related to that, you know, during his presidency. So first and foremost, have a conversation, and then we go from there.
I wanted to just hone in on this point where you said, Mondale, and you know, everybody could jump in. And my son has touched on this idea that people, Black men, some Black men are leaning more conservative. I hear you saying that that's not necessarily the case, right? But what does it mean when there's an uptick in Black men voting for Trump? Is it a Trump thing or is it a party thing? What does it mean when Herschel Walker is actually a viable possibility in Georgia in this moment? And to your point, you know, I know all of you can get in on this part of the conversation, that these consultants and the polls and the ways in which they, you know, do the reporting, that is always off. It never represents Black people properly. But we can see, or we can feel with our own eyes and through our cell phones and through conversations, that there are more Black men who are even willing to entertain a possibility of a Herschel Walker. And so I just want to be corrected and or educated. That's a better way of saying it. Educated on what is it that we're hearing? Why are we hearing this? And how does it not mean that there are more Black men who are voting towards the moving towards the Republican Party or Republican candidates?
First of all, it's capped that more Black men voted for Donald Trump. It didn't happen. In 2020, Donald Trump did not get a larger portion of Black men participation. That one quote, that single quote, was in the New York Times a couple of days after the election. It came from Edmonds. Edmonds is a ridiculous, wrong exit poller who has flawed instruments every year. And it's not just me. You can look at the many research one study schools that'll tell you that it's trash. What I will say though is a better way to judge people's turnout is look at how if they participate in the primary and then also the general election. You can see it, especially if we're talking about people who sat out elections, 5 and 6 election cycles, like a lot of the Black men did. Herschel Walker is not within 1% of Warnock right now. That is capped. That is a poll. That is not what the voter data is saying. I don't care about polls. I care about data because data is real. And if you look at who's participated, at what rates they participated, and who they are and how they are registered, it's no way that people are saying that. And also, this idea that Black men are more conservative now is a false narrative. I'm telling what we know is, we know these people in our lives that are conservative. They're not just being more outspoken. That's cool with us. We should understand that there will always be, and Republicans always fall, especially at the national level, somewhere between 8 and 12% with Black voters. Donald Trump performed right in that middle. He didn't outperform anybody. He actually did worse than Mitt Romney did with Black men. So people don't, it's a harder work to find out data, the real data. And the exit polls are just snapshots that people run with because they get put in the papers real quick. I did a long 3-hour interview with Rolling Stone, proving to them that poll was wrong, and they had no other source than Edmonds for that fake poll or that exit poll. So I would say, first of all, the idea that Black men are more conservative now than they've ever been doesn't ring true with how we're voting and the issues we care about. If that was true, then how could we say that Black men supported progressive issues like a woman's right to choose more than anybody, not excluding anybody? right? This year when they polled demographics, Black men outperformed Black women on that support.
I want to get you, Jamal, into the conversation. What are you hearing? And are we on the right track with what we're saying? You are in the church, talking to Black men that, we know our brothers from the church. So give us your perspective from that viewpoint.
I said, first of all, I'm sending a cash app to Mondale because he just helped the miseducation of the Negro. I didn't know nothing that he just said. And so I feel better because I've been stressed out. The Bible says our people die from a lack of knowledge. And everything that we've been mobilizing around Mondale has been around the polls, not around the data. They have been, Tamika, 1 million people have participated in early voting in the last week. And it has been a great number of people from our community who has done it. But Mondale, the polls are not giving reflective of our turnout. And so the street politicians, y'all are helping me today. I'm a convert. Mondale, I'm joining your church. I'm leaving mine. So no, this is helpful for us to really recalibrate our level of thinking because what it also does, wisdom, is it puts in the minds of our people what's it all for if we're just following the polls. That there is no point, that is not going to change, it's not going to shift. And I want to enlarge that conversation, Tamika, as a Georgian, that is not just around Warnock, but let's not forget Stacey. They're trying to put her behind in double digits. Again, Mondale in the polls, but not in the data. So I'm just encouraging, inspired that Mondale, you're gonna have to send me that data because I've been preaching the wrong thing. I'm preaching from the Dead Sea Scrolls. I need you to give me the New Testament so I can I can try to fix this. But no, this is great.
And I think a key word that you mentioned, Tamika, is entertain, right? Like people are entertaining these actors, right? Entertaining these people who are coming with this conservative rhetoric and talking about Black men in this way through social media, right? Every shade room, social room has posted and talked about these people, and people are being more aware to them and giving them that time of day, even though the data may not show that, right? I remember when I first moved to DC in 2018, there was all these conversations about Black conservatives and Black progressives and this growing amount, right? Again, we look at the data and that's not true. And so the fact that folks are entertaining it, I think we need to start shifting the dynamics in which we uplift those people and there's platforms, right? Because if there's real people in our community who are doing the work that we want to make sure are elected, those are the narratives, those are the points, those are the people that we need to make sure are in those places and spaces and are being uplifted.
So that
Can I just add one thing real quick?
Yes, you can.
So ever since I've gotten into Congress, I've become more aware of how powerful corporate media is, how powerful corporate polls are, and how much propaganda is peddled through media and through polling to get us to think a certain way, even though that may not be accurate. Like literally, I'm living in the matrix right now, because I'll do an interview on a particular topic with a particular publication, and they'll take what they want to take to craft a narrative they want to craft that got nothing to do or very little to do with what I said. So that polling piece is critical because this is money, and money is going to dictate things in a way that's going to lead to corporate media, corporate polling getting more money. So I just want to make that quick point.
That's very important. I want to your point, Wisdom, I want to ask you a question after I state this. I remember during the Trump election, and I remember I was with Tamika, we was in DC and we had to get on the train, right? And all these polls had said that Hillary was going to win. We got on the train and the polls told us that she won. This was the poll said. The poll said it didn't even make sense. It was a landslide. And within 2 hours, we was on the train, and everything that these polls said didn't happen. So at that point, I realized that the polling, whatever the polls was, it wasn't a reliable source. So I want to ask you, Wisdom, as a young man, Do you believe that, because like you said, like we saying, we're getting polls, we're getting social media, we're getting the feel from social media, how it seems like it's an uptick in conservative values, especially Black men talking with conservative talking points. Is social media real? How much do we give, how much props do we give? How much reality do we think that social media presents to us?
Social media is a powerful tool, right? Throughout the pandemic, we had to use it really to reach voters, right? To contact people. But something that I wholeheartedly believe is like likes don't equal votes, right? Folks can be shared a million times. Folks can share it around. There can be, sound bites, clips, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's about turnout, right? It's about that data, right? It's about making sure that real people in our community are reached with that message. And so I think it has an opportunity to help influence, right? And I think how we use it is going to be very important. I think for the younger generation, right, it's our primary source of communication. I wake up in the morning, I'm not opening up a newspaper, I'm looking on Instagram, I'm looking on Twitter, I'm hearing what's moving in the media today. And I think the way in which we can change that, right, is making sure that folks have the right information. Like, how are we connecting with these culture brands, with these sources, with these opportunities to make sure that they know how influential they have to actually change the course of an election if they're actually mobilizing people to the polls.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else on social media and what you think, like, what's the reality? And I would just jump in and say that I think the internet is extremely dangerous. I think it's extremely dangerous. It's actually become very toxic. Yes, it can be used. Yes, we all use it. Yes, we have found ways to make it work in different situations. But I do agree that there is a sentiment that is brewing online. And by the way, let me just insert here that a few weeks ago, a New York Times article came out showing how the Russian bots were involved in the Women's March, and it was used, whoever, and don't get me to, Congressman Bowman is on here, so I'm gonna be careful of what I say, but I don't know who paid the Russians or who worked with them to do what they did. But during the Women's March, the bots that attacked us, and particularly Linda Sarsour, who you all know is our partner, they really focused on her. But by extension, the entire Women's March was receiving basically hate tweets all day, stories from different sites. And they were working so hard to create dissension among the ranks within within the Women's March, but of course to turn other people off. And I believe that those bots still exist, and they have the HOTEP, if you will, profiles. Some of them are real individuals, but a lot of them have the profiles, and they are spewing, certain things and putting things in the atmosphere that is making it very difficult for people to know what's real and what's fake online. I don't know if others are feeling that. I noticed that you, Jamal, have pulled back from being online as much as you used to be.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's a gift and a curse, and it's become more of a curse in many ways than a gift. It's a great way to share information. It's a great way to communicate different initiatives that you're a part of. It's great for that. It's a media platform to share press releases, tweets about particular issues, bring attention to issues. It's great for that. And as we have all seen, shortly thereafter, the toxicity comes in, the bots get involved, and many of these bots have been programmed to have an agenda. And this is why, as we talk about until freedom and defeating white supremacy and Black revolution, we got to step our AI game up, our artificial intelligence game up as we push back against that, because we need our own bots as well, telling the narratives that we want to tell on social media. So, to your point, I'm still on it, but I try to avoid the toxicity and the poison as much as I can. But one last point, and I think this was said earlier, the way celebrities are pushed on social media is really problematic as well, because we hold celebrities in such high regard, as a society. When they say something that gets disproportionate attention, and then it sucks all the oxygen out the room, and we can't have real conversations about real topics. And social media is a hard place to do that anyway.
I think that we've got to really put our own messaging out. I don't think that the answer is for us to go radio silent. Is that we've got a great package, but we've got to learn how to amplify it. And we can't leave all of the language to hate speech and white supremacists and bots without us touting it. A lot of people are not participating because of what it is that they don't know. A lot of people will decry Congressman that this administration hadn't done anything for our community, and that's not true. But we've done a bad job of promoting it. And so I think that we've got to go beyond Tamika posting matching pajamas. I think that we got to post. I think we got to post the stuff that's significant and that's meaningful for our people to know what's taking place.
Well, to your point, brother, just real quick, you're right about that. I would also, and I've been very critical of the Democratic Party about this. The Democratic Party hasn't done enough to communicate with Black men, with Black people, with disengaged communities, not just since I've been in office, but prior to that. You know, one of the reasons why when I ran, the party didn't think I had a shot to win is because the party has been unplugged from real people for a very long time. And what did we do? We went door to door in our community, knocking on doors, being present, canvassing, being everywhere. I met Mondale. You know, we was down with Bill Cobb. Shout out to Bill. We was all over the place, right? In the streets. And that's how we were able to win. And going back to the polling piece, you know, polling had us, you know, pretty much neck and neck. We won that race by 16 points. So it's the party has all the resources it needs to do what it wants to do. It just chooses to prioritize white, independent / moderate voters and get them to swing to us without talking to us at all, meaning Black men.
And
Go ahead, Ms. Go ahead. I was just gonna say, you know, it's probably inappropriate to discount the importance of social media. So I appreciate everybody like telling the truth that we can't back away from that technology, because it's honestly how most Black men actually use YouTube like the rest of the world use Google, right? So the fact that YouTube is the wild, wild west as it pertains to how campaigns are even spending resources toward Black men is absolutely ridiculous. But beyond that, I would also say, I think I think trying to entertain the Black vote out is always gonna wind up as a field opportunity for the Democratic Party. What we do know though is there's a wonderful roadmap on how to win elections. The Democratic Party just choose not to use it every election cycle. They still do the same thing over and over and over with the same consultants over and over and over. I mean, I'm getting emails right now from James Carville. James Carville should not be sending an email to any Black Democrat. He is racist. The fact that they can't even segment out their list, first of all, he's outdated. He's Bill Clinton politics. Majority of Black men are triggered by Bill Clinton's name just because of some of his policies and what he did in his office. And people can't even read the room to know that much about their base, but they're still sending out information. And the reason, this is what I wanted to say because I didn't speak on the other one, about the polls, the reason the polls are so wrong is they're talking to this so-called likely voter. Black men don't ever fall into that category. Very few of us, those who went to college, those who are part of, fraternities or those who are super voters. That's a very small slither of brothers who participated. And while you all are talking about that tool you was talking about, brother, I just wanted to give this information. Right now, there's 192,000 Black men that have already voted in Georgia. 192,000. It's only 1 million Black men in Georgia, right? So if I remove the suppressions, that 192,000 is probably going to jump to somewhere over 200,000. That means we're performing, like I said, we're outperforming white men. Nobody's saying that. Black men are outperforming white men, and they got all the resources and none of the hurdles. We've closed that gap from 10% to 2% of Black women, and that's how you win. That's how you win. So I think, even more, I got to say this again, and the reason is because the people who are turning out are not the so-called likely voters. This is how we win elections. This is how we won 2022. So I mean, 2020 and how we do win 2022. I also think, and this is the last point I'll say about this. There's tools you can use, like free tools, to see what's going on in an election outside of polls. And social media is one of them. Facebook, for instance, will allow you, they don't know it, I don't guess they figured it out yet. You could take the voter file from a state, segment it by race, and take that whole voter file and put it on Facebook and send a message to them. For 25 cents or $2, you can reach all of those people or target all of those people. And we're not doing that. We have white consultants, creating messaging that sounds like you're talking against us instead of for us. And you're never going to make brothers see what your administration did as long as you're out here talking how great the economy is when we know we're double our white counterpart as it pertains to unemployment. And that's the #1 issue for Black men.
Right.
We're never going to make Black men see your issues when you're talking about college education being the pathway to freedom, and it don't work that way, Black men. But college ain't got us free. So you took away trades, and we need our trades back, including coding, and you're not talking about that to Black men. These are the issues, qualified immunity, and why most Black men don't walk around talking about qualified immunity. They damn sure say it's screwed up that a cop can kill a Black man and nothing happens to them. And that, to me, is a conversation about qualified immunity that people don't even know how to introduce, because they think you talk to Black men with cameras, a white person in a barbershop. And in actuality, any Black man has been in a barbershop know that once somebody that's not a Black man walk in the room, the whole damn conversation change. It could be a Black woman, it could be anybody. You walk in that barbershop and you're not a Black man, the entire conversation shifts. So you're not even getting the real conversation. This is why the polls be so bad. Think about this.
Mondale, they need you, man. I don't understand why Mondale ain't on this. This don't even make sense.
I told them they ain't listen.
Saying right now is what Black men are thinking. You know, the reality, like even with social media, like I tell Tamika hates social media. She hates for me to get on social media because she know I'm gonna say whatever I feel. And I feel like the reality is there has to be a counter narrative, right? If we are allowing people to dominate one of the major sources of information for our people, right? When we go to YouTube, like you said, they up there saying everything lies. They said nobody is challenging that. We don't have 5 or 6 people that are telling them the truth, right? So at least when they know that we're going to tell the truth. So if we are not saying, hey, this is a lie, right? And these people are left to continue to flourish on these platforms with lies and continue to go, then what all they have is this. It's like really there's only one candidate, right? If there's no counter narrative, then the only thing they have to believe is truth is the lies that they're being told. So I think the Democratic Party has to do a better job at, if you got Kanye over here saying this, then you got to get somebody of equal value that you're appealing to what they want to believe, not just coming saying, yo, you're going to vote or die. Like nobody, we tired, we've been voting, we ain't dead. That shit is done. We tired of hearing it. Like the vote or die shit, it was cool at one point. It was a good slogan, but now we need, if you don't vote, when you vote right here, your kids gonna be able to be in these schools. You vote, your kids gonna have opportunities that you didn't have. You vote, your kids is gonna be able to, don't have to go through the same struggles that you went through. That's what Black men are interested to making sure that our kids aren't struggling the same way we did. Everything I do is to make sure that my sons don't have to work as hard as I did to be able to just survive. I want them to be able to live comfortably and make decisions not based off desperation, not based off poverty, not saying, damn, I gotta risk my freedom, I gotta do this, I have to do this, even though I don't want to, even though my heart is into this, even though I'm skilled at this, but I need to get this regular job and go away from my passion because I can't survive. That's what Black men are interested in. And if they don't if the party doesn't focus around those things, the average everyday Black man is dealing with, then they're gonna lose. And they have to use these platforms. They gotta get on these platforms and use the voice, because it's people like us that want to be able, I can't go up there and tell nobody vote or die. I'm just not saying that shit no more. I'm not saying it.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in real quick. So excellent points all the way around. So I'm in Congress right now as the first Black man in U.S. history to hold this seat. One of the reasons why I'm here is because Black men and Black people came out and voted for me. And I could have did much better with Black men if I was more strategic in getting them out during my first race. But the fact that I even came forth as a actual Black man, more Black men came out to vote, right? So I'm here now, right? Because I'm here, new and different conversations are happening and different questions are being asked. So we have a White House liaison that we communicate with consistently. I'm in direct contact with the president's chief of staff, and I have told him, like when Mondale had that great article, I think it was in the Washington Post, about the White House is failing on Black men. I called the chief of staff, president's chief of staff, and was like, yo, you see this article? You got to do something about it. You need to call him in. We need to have him, blah, blah, blah. And they like, all right, man, all right, like not really listening. Like, okay, whatever. The Democratic Party had a retreat and they brought in like some consultants to teach us, to train us on messaging. You know what they brought in? They brought in the people who did those Dove commercials about love your body. And they put us through this whole thing on doing this for messaging, Dove commercial, love your body, whatever. They've never had a conversation with me, who won a historic election, about like messaging. They never have a conversation with nobody in the squad. All won historic elections. Son, they never brought us in and said, yo, what did y'all do? Teach us. Never, ever did that at all. On the other side, during one of my first weeks in Congress, 7 members of the European Union, 7 ambassadors from the European Union set me up with a lunch at the ambassador's home in DC. Germany was there, Italy was there, all of these people were there. They just wanted to meet the person who beat Elliot Engel because they couldn't believe that it happened. So I got Europe wanting to talk to me and have conversation with me to be like, yo, how did you beat, who is this person beat Elliot Engel? But the party here didn't do that, right? So the point I want to make is the party has failed historically and continues to, but the fact that now that I'm here, Mondale is involved and all that, we can continue to push the party to have the conversation we need to have, because it's not just about voting, it's about accountability after the vote. And, you know, me communicating with y'all, my son Tamika, consistently, letting y'all know what's going on in Washington, letting you know about a bill, asking you to call us. That shit is power. Like, we're power building right now. And it's not, obviously, it's not going to happen overnight. So that's why, like, I wanted to come on to really help. I know it's hard because, you know, we've been ignored and marginalized for far too long. But we are beginning the process of building the power we need to build, and having conversations like this is a big part of that.
What is the messaging? You know, my son just went through a whole thing. I'm not going to say vote or die, but all of you are out there talking to your base. I know this week, on Sunday, Reverend Bryant, Jamal Bryant, he got my phone blowing up with people because he's the one line master. And he said, we don't need a walker, we need a runner. And the whole thing, everybody's blowing up saying, you know, Jamal has hit the people with a good line in terms of one election. But I know, Jamal Bryant, that you have to talk to your members one-on-one, more than the one line from the pulpit. You're out here trying to encourage people, registering people to vote, being in the community. What is the message? Wisdom, same. What is the message? Here you are, Mondale, sitting in the center of getting Black men, the Black Male Voter Project. You're out here, you're talking to our people. What are you saying? And I'd love to give the congressman the last word, because, you know, you got a tough job to come to be a part of a party that you know is not handling business properly for our people, but still to try to encourage folks to see past that and engage in the process. So let's start with Reverend Bryant.
I've been telling family that the Black church needs to take a page from white evangelicals. White evangelicals promote policy where the Black church historically has promoted personality. And we have failed to talk about what are the issues that are driving us to the poll, to what Mondale's point is. Black men educate themselves on what is our point, but the Black church has not done it. So we have pushed people who are charismatic, who are articulate, who are marketable, but don't hold any accountability around what is the policy agenda. And so our responsibility at this tick of the watch is to raise what are the policies in front of the people. If you stick with what our policies are, then we're gonna forget the personality. And I think that what it is that we have to do is really raise up what are our policies, or what my son Roland Martin always says, what's the ask? What are we looking for to come on the other side of this midterm election, other than we need your vote in the midterm so we can get it in the presidential primaries in 16 months. So I think that part of our process at this Ticket to Watch is really underscoring what are the policies. I went and saw very quickly the Till movie on last night about Emmett Till, to see young Medgar Evers talk about, while this is good for one case is not going to change it. We need a completely different overhaul of the system. And I think that that's part of our responsibility.
Wisdom?
Yep. When I'm out there in these streets with these young people and talking with them and engaging with them, I really urge them to recognize that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We know that power concedes nothing without a demand, and the more and more we continue to urge the folks who are in power to actually speak to these issues and actually create real change and implement policy, the more that we'll see it. I recognize the fact that we are a great mobilizing body, and there's a lot of things that we're still working on in our generation, but thinking about Gen Z, thinking about millennials, we are the largest living bloc in America. And I think the way that we actually see that power is by mobilizing our folks, mobilizing our peers, and thinking about our spheres of influence, right? How we can reach people who are in our communities, the power of five, the power of reaching into places and spaces that aren't being touched, because at the end of the day, the folks who are here on this call are the ones who are doing the work, right? The folks who are consistently engaging day after day. And what I love seeing right now is the young Black men who are running for Congress, right? You got Maxwell Frost out of Florida. You got Mandela Barnes out of Wisconsin, right? I've never been so engaged with Wisconsin in my life until this moment in time, to see people who look like me, who come from places like me. I get texts from Maxwell Frost every single day talking about voting. And so making sure that we are seeing those candidates who come from our community, who are going to be accountable, who have plans, who care about those issues, because everything that we've advocated for, even in just this year, is under attack, right? We talked about student debt cancellation. The people who don't want it happen are the ones who are voting, the ones who are pushing. And so the more we actually engage with that, the more we actually see things through, the more we actually keep pushing at the door, we'll see a better future.
Mondale?
I mean, we don't have a script as it pertains to what we tell brothers to go vote, because, and I think the blessing of that is, I mean, you Tamika, my son, y'all, we were blessed to be together in 2020 in Georgia at my event on election night. And it was a hood-ass event. I mean, we have a hood-ass political program that is absolutely working. I mean, I think the best thing to do is make sure that in the conversations you're having with voters, you're not transactional. We're not going to people's door right now talking about this is the most important election of your life. We step away from those conversations. And I think, but we've had 19 conversations with Black men in our 17 states this year. So each one of the Black men in our state had 19 conversations from us, especially those who are not traditional voters. We spend more time and energy on these people. So now all we're doing is say, hey, don't forget to go vote. And that's all we need to say, because our work is not from the past 2 months, 2 days. Our work has been since January. So these brothers know what it means. They know that this election, they know what it means to them. They know what issue is important to them. They know what motivates them and what doesn't. They also know what's realistic. We also tell brothers all the time, voting for somebody or electing somebody is not revolutionary. Unelecting their ass when they don't do what they say is. So election revolution doesn't happen in one cycle. It's the power to get rid of incumbents. Getting rid of incumbents is something that don't normally happen. Jamal Bowman defeated an incumbent. I'm the mayor of my hometown. I defeated an incumbent. And I think the way that works is if you stay off TV and stay in front of people throughout the year, then you have the right to ask that person to go vote, and not use these dumbass white tactics that don't do nothing for our communities.
Congressman, you got the last word.
Absolutely. So we're not going to defeat white supremacy and 400 years of oppression in one election cycle. We have to be consistently engaged in building real power, building Black power over the course of the rest of our lives. So this is the fight for the rest of our lives, and it's every day. So, for me, when I got into Congress and I saw all these lobbies coming at me, right? The pro-Israel lobby, the fossil fuel lobby, the pharmaceutical lobby, police unions, military industrial complex, all these lobbies bombard me with calls and letters, and they want to meet and they want to give me money so I can do what they want. And obviously I don't respond to them. We have to build that kind of power in Congress, in every state house, in every county, every municipality across the country. And it's grassroots up and it's power building. So the message and the mission is Black power. And the more I learn and the more we all learn and share with each other, we are building that power for the long term. So yes, absolutely vote this cycle. But if you vote and go to sleep, that's not enough. It's about remaining engaged to hold us accountable. Like that's the bottom line. It's accountability. And if you hold your members of Congress and elected officials accountable, they're going to do what they need to do for you. And if they don't, you vote their asses out of office.
I'm so happy to have this conversation, man. I want to say thank all of you. You know, what you said is very important. As a Black man, you know, who actually just wants the best for his people, it's hard. You know, it's hard having these conversations. It's hard talking to damaged individuals dealing with trauma who have not received anything from this government. Like you said, Mondale, is the audacity that America thinks that we owe them our vote. You know, and the reality is that we really don't owe them anything. They owe us stuff. And I hope people are paying attention. I hope that people listen to this conversation and understand that Black men have things that they want and things that they need and ways we need to be addressed and respected, you know, and just telling us whatever you think or just disregarding us and going after other demographics is not going to work for us. So, you know, I just want to thank you guys and appreciate you for being able to say the things I be thinking. I don't know how to say it as good as y'all be saying it, but I be thinking the same things y'all be saying.
You say it perfectly fine. And I'm glad that my brothers came on today as well to talk. You know, we focus a lot on Black women, but we thought leading into this last few days before the election that we need to focus on the Black man, because without a strong Black man in our communities are hopeless. I believe that. My father, he is the king of our home and he is the man. Everybody knows Stan is the man. But one thing about it is that man understands his power is also in building his woman and making sure that my mother is happy. So that's what it's all about for me, is bringing us together and making sure that no one in our community is left behind. I love y'all so very much.
Love you more.
Reverend Jamal Bryant. Thank you, Mondale Robinson. Thank you, Wisdom Cole. And thank you, Congressman Jamaal Bowman.
Thank you. Peace and love, y'all. Talk soon.
That was great. It was great combo. I mean, we need like 50 more of them.
You know, I hope that somebody pays attention to this. You know, I hope that, you know, that people start focusing on what's real. You know, like you said, the internet is dangerous. It's dangerous for two things. It's dangerous is because if you give the wrong person power on the internet, they can misinform at such a quick rate, right? You can misinform somebody so fast, millions of people. If you got 100 million followers and 20 million and 30 million followers, and you put out some information that's false, right? They take it as is really what it is, you know? So,
and it moves fast.
It moves so fast and people just grab onto it, man. So I hope that the truth tellers understand that we have to utilize our voices the same way that the people who are intentionally spreading misinformation and lies are. And we got to combat these lies because they're harmful. You know, we're in very critical times in our lives, not just in this election, but in every election. Every time that we have an election, every time that we exalt someone to a level of power, you know, it's critical, because when you have the ears of the masses and people start to believe you in the hearts, it's hard to pull away, man. We've seen how the power, you know, in the wrong hands is misleading. We talk about cult leaders. Cult leaders have had followers, man. We talk about people like Hitler. When you get the ears of people and you start to utilize it the wrong way, you see how it can go.
How it can, yeah.
You know, how it can really destroy us. So I'm just hoping that somebody's listening, man. I hope y'all paying attention. You know, this was a emergency show today. This emergency conversation. So we went away from our normal format. You know, I ain't even going into I don't get it, none of that. We're not doing it. I just don't get how people think that we shouldn't be involved in any process that affects our lives. Whether you like it or not, you need to find out the policies that you need that are going to directly affect you and your community and your lives, and then find out those, the candidates that are for those policies, and get out there and do what you need to do.
Absolutely.
So with that said, man, I'm not going to always be right. Tamika D. Mallory's not going to always be wrong, but we will both always, and I mean always, be authentic. Make sure you go out and vote. Vote for your interests, vote for your kids, vote for your wife, vote for your husband, vote for everybody.
That's right. And November 8th is the last day to vote.
The last
Most
day.
places, early voting is happening now. Find your polling location and go cast your vote. Peace.
Listen to Street Politicians on the Black Effect Network on iHeartRadio.
And catch us every single Wednesday for the video version of Street Politicians on iWomen.tv.